a lot of not-for-profits probably don't see themselves as holders of data in the same way as they might see a big company. They understand big companies do, but are they wrong there?
Yes, absolutely. If your organization, if everybody who works there has an email address, you're managing digital data. That's digital data. It's very sensitive digital data in some cases, and it's often the open door to the other data that the organization will have. So the data that a not-for-profit collects on the people it serves, the people who fund it, the people who volunteer there, the people that come to its events, think of all of that as the data trove of that not-for-profit organization, the photographs it uses, the financial information it has on its staff. It may not have as many people, and then the overall quantity of data may be less than a big company, but it certainly has the types of data on individual people that larger corporates are managing.
I know we're kind of jumping ahead with some of the questions, but that seems to just bring in that issue of data governance, and that's a big thing from your perspective, isn't it?
Absolutely. We think it is as core to governance writ large as good financial practice, good human resource management. There's no going back. We're not going to a time where that, even the most basic kind of digitized data that you're going to have. You're going to have payroll information, you're going to have volunteers identifying information, you're going to have all kinds of information about the people you work with and for, and that resource needs to be governed with the same integrity as you manage your financial resources and your human resources.
Obviously, not-for-profits don't have anything like the resources that a big company, a big organisation, a government has. So how can they hold themselves to the same standards?
So one of the things we encourage people to do is actually very counter to the messages that we've been receiving as people for the last decade or decade and a half, and that is to minimize the data that you collect. So we've all been sort of habituated to collecting more and more data all the time. Just think about how many photographs you have on your iPhone, right? That's data that you collect and store and keep because it's cheap and easy to do so. But when you start to recognize that some of the information, some of the digitized data that you have on people that you serve, people you work with, people who volunteer, funders, whoever, is actually potentially a liability, then what you want to do is start from what are you actually trying to accomplish? What data do you need to answer the questions you're trying to answer? And can you minimize at all times the kinds of information you have to ask people to contribute to your organization and that you have to hold on to? We say don't collect what you can't protect. And the real place that not-for-profits resource constraints fit in here is that they can't ever have the top-of-the-line technological security systems in place. But here's the good news. Those top-of-the-line technological security solutions get breached all the time. What really matters to run a safe and ethical digital organization is that your staff is trained and constantly updated on what it means to manage digital data, and then that you put in place some good practices about only collecting the information that you actually need. You think about how long you hold on to it. You make sure you get permission to collect it in the first place, those kinds of things.
So the latest technology is not necessarily the answer here, and I think a lot of organisations are perhaps seduced by all the whiz-bangery, all the programs, all the apps. They want to get on board with all of that. So are you saying just take care around all of that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, particularly, so there's always going to be trade-offs here. Some of the best proprietary commercial software that a not-for-profit can use is going to provide for them the kind of security that they'd never be able to provide for themselves. So this is where we often get into conversations, for example, about should I store my data in the cloud? Well, all the cloud means is that it's on somebody else's hardware. And if that somebody is a major corporation, then you know a corporation like Box or Dropbox or Amazon or something like that, you know that those companies can put more money into securing their systems than a not-for-profit ever will. But what the not-for-profit has to ask themselves is, what are they actually protecting that information from? Are they protecting it from government interests? Are they protecting it from corporate interests? Or are they protecting it from hackers? And that'll help you determine whether or not it's a good idea to use the kinds of services that can certainly protect you from hackers, but they're not going to protect you from government surveillance or corporate use of your data, because if you read that terms of service, which I know nobody ever does, but you should, when you read it, you'll find out what they're saying they can do with your data. I try to get nonprofits to think about it this way. They usually are renting space from physical space, right? They have an office lease. Somebody bothered to read the office lease, right? And figure out if the landlord says, we can listen in on every conversation you're having there in your office. Well, your terms of service with your tech vendors are like office leases. And they are, in fact, listening in on the conversations you're having. So you should at least be aware of that. Figure out if that's an okay compromise for your organization to make. And again, it comes back to training. If you know that your material is stored on servers that a third-party company has access to, maybe you want to train your staff to never put certain things on those servers.
I think a lot of not-for-profits will be listening to what you're saying and going, yeah, but I don't have the time, I don't have the expertise, we don't have the resources to properly prosecute what you're suggesting.
I'll tell you what no nonprofit has the time, expertise, or resources to deal with is when that information is breached. When that happens, or it's lost, or it's destroyed, or it's taken, or it shows up on the front page of the paper where you didn't want it to be, that's what you don't have time to deal with. And even if that's the kind of thinking that you need to kind of kick yourself enough to undertake thinking about this, imagine how long it would take you if you lost all of the information your organization runs on. Just do the mental exercise of trying to figure out do the mental exercise of trying to figure out how long it would take you to recover from that and how much it would cost you. And then multiply both of those things by 3 or 4, because chances are you're completely underestimating how long it would take you. That's what no not-for-profit has the time or expertise or resources to deal with.